guys, welcome back to Mofo's Lessons, and I'm just so happy to be here with you guys again today. We're going to talk about boundaries. And a lot of us don't have boundaries, and if we did have boundaries, we would be a lot happier, we'd have a better quality of life, we would have better relationships. So let's talk about boundaries. So the first thing that I want you guys to, know is what are boundaries, right? So boundaries are essentially just a set of rules that you give to everybody that you love, and it is basically your personal rule book on how you want to be treated by others. Those are boundaries. Just rules on how you want to be treated. I want you guys to think about, things in your life and situations where someone may have violated your boundaries, or and it could be something small, like for example, somebody could walk in my house and keep their shoes on, and anybody who knows me, you know that you need to take your shoes off when you come in my house. That is a boundary. You cannot come on my house with shoes on. I even have shoe covers for you. So there's no reason why you should be in the house with your sneakers on from outside. So that's something that's a boundary for me. And then another boundary could be something like, I don't hang around this person when they're drinking because I don't like how they act and I don't like how they treat me. So boundaries can range from, big and small. So you just have to determine what boundaries work for you. It's hard to determine when we need boundaries. So I would say you're a person who needs boundaries if struggle in your relationships with others. Like you feel resentment, you feel anxiety, you feel depression. Sometimes we get a call from like a relative, and every time we see their name pop up on the phone, it's kind of like, like, oh my gosh, you need to set boundaries with that person. And if you're feeling somebody's making you feel anxious or depressed, then you definitely need to have boundaries with that person. Another symptom of determining if you need boundaries is if you feel very overwhelmed, like you need to just disappear and shut off your phone, or if you constantly change your phone number because you don't want certain people to have it. Like those are very strong indicators that you might need some boundaries. We know what boundaries are, and we know how to spot symptoms if we're lacking boundaries. Okay, so what leads to a lack of boundaries? A lot of times we learn boundaries from our parents, or, the person who raised us, how we grew up. I know, like, when I was growing up, like, there was no privacy. Like, you didn't have locks on the doors. My mom went through my phone. My mom even, like, somebody would ask her for something and she would be on her last and she would give it to them. Like she just literally didn't have boundaries. And like she grew up in the foster care system, so she had a lot of people coming in and out of her household and things like that. So she struggles with boundaries. She has a hard time with it, even with her sisters and her family members, her siblings. Like she struggles with boundaries. Me, I also struggle with boundaries. I always feel guilty when I don't do something that somebody wants me to do, and I always feel guilty when I have to say no, but it's getting easier. So if your parents don't have boundaries, chances are you will struggle with boundaries. Another indicator that you may struggle with boundaries is if you've experienced childhood trauma. So like things like, physical abuse, mental abuse, neglect, sexual abuse, addiction, a parent in and out of the household, absent parents, things like that. Those traumas can also lead to lack of boundaries. If you've been violated as a child, and things were happening to you that you didn't want to happen to you, and you felt the way you feel, like when you go through something like that, it's just it makes it harder to say no to people. And I just know from my personal experience, like I've had a situation with a cousin, and when I'm around that cousin, I definitely feel uh violated, like like that person is yeah, I don't like to be around that person, honestly. And it's a struggle, especially like growing up, because you're expected to do stuff as a family and always be together. And, you know, like having to be around someone that you felt like crossed your boundaries, or, you have to play nice or things like that. I struggle with my boundaries, that I wouldn't say that is, the main reason why I struggle with boundaries, but it's definitely, fuel to the fire. So we've all gone through certain things as kids, and, you know, all we can do is try to be better, and our past doesn't have to be our future. And the one thing I want people to get out of this podcast is to just help each other find ways to, have a better quality of life. Because we want to break generational curses. We want to be better people, and we want to be able to, you know, navigate the world with a healthy mind. And we also want to have healthy relationships. That's also a sign, that you don't have good boundaries. If you have unhealthy relationships, you deal with abusive men or women, or, whatever's in between. That could be you lack boundaries, and maybe you've seen that in childhood and you've gone through that and you struggle. But that doesn't have to be your reality moving forward. So now we can talk about what are some ways that we can, establish boundaries. So first, I would say that you need to understand that when your boundaries are violated, the only person who loses is you, right? Like, if your friend asks you to help them move and you don't want to do it, and you told her 10 times you don't want to do it, and she keeps asking you, and then you say, yeah, what that teaches that person? That if they keep asking, they're going to get what they want. It's just like children. They keep nagging, 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 and then you finally say yeah, and then now they're happy. So we got to just be more cautious of that. Don't let people talk you into things. And it can be hard. Like, it is hard. It is definitely hard. I'm not going to say that it's easy, but it does get easier, as you start to establish boundaries a little bit more and have rules for people. So, and also understanding, just like how I said earlier, that like you may feel guilty, like me, all the time. I feel bad about everything that I freaking do in my life. I always feel bad about everything. Like, even when I'm in the right, I feel bad that somebody else is wrong. I don't know why I feel like that, but it's hard. But the more you say no, and the more you establish boundaries, and the more you put your foot down, the easier it gets easier. It definitely gets easier. And then, the guilt, it does go away. Like, you start not caring no more. Like me, if I don't want to pick up I have my phone on do not disturb from 10 p.m. to 10 a.m. You know why? Because I prioritize my sleep. From 10 p.m. to 10 a.m., nobody can get through my do not disturb. And that's just a boundary that I have to establish. And people hate it. They think that, oh, well, they should be able to contact me all throughout the night. Like, no, that's one of my boundaries. And it goes on every night. It's set, it's automatic. Something small like that is the boundary. Um, and this is some advice from one of my homeboys. I'm just gonna give him this one because he is the king of boundaries. Okay, you cannot convince this man to do anything that he doesn't want to do. And he always tells me to just lead with no. If anybody asks me for anything, the first thing I am going to say is no. Like, even if I didn't even hear what came out of their mouth, I'm going to just say no. And then, when I get a chance to think about it and blah, 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 then I might say yeah. But saying no automatically, takes you out the equation. And it's like that person can now find another person to do what they asked you to do. But if you say yes and then you change your mind later, you kind of look like a dickhead because you're like, they were kind of counting on you. So if you just give them a no initially, they can't count on you. So just always lead with no. And that's what I'm doing too, is leading with no. And then the final thing I want to say to you guys is, people don't respect boundaries because they're trying to get their needs met, right? So they want you to do whatever it is that they want you to do. Like I said with kids, it's like, I want this juice, I want this juice, I want this candy, I want this candy, blah, 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 blah. And it's like they just want it because they want it. It's not that they don't respect you. It's not that they don't love you. It's not that they don't care about you. It's just that they care about themselves more. And if you just have that mindset that they're putting their needs first, you should also want to put your needs first, like it's simple. But for us people, we us empaths, we struggle with that. We struggle with wanting to be reliable and wanting to be there and not wanting to disappoint people. But it's like, if doing the task or whatever it is somebody wants you to do and they're constantly violating your boundaries, it's kind of like, it's frustrating, and you should put yourself first because they're putting themselves first. There's always the flip side. So yeah. So, I hope you guys liked today's episode. Moving forward, I'm just going to talk about, boundaries with friends, boundaries with, spouses, boundaries with families, because, all the rules, they parallel, but, certain relationships call for different, efforts. So we're just going to keep working together, and we're going to figure out how to keep these boundaries going and try to be better people. So that is it for today. I hope you guys loved it, and I will see you guys later.